Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Kate Sinclair, the founder of the Tadeusz Bradecki Prize. I've got to do some very important housekeeping, which is that toilets are in the basement, as you've probably discovered, but thankfully there are lifts. Smoking for you naughty smokers is on the roof terrace and the fire escape's down the stairs. It's also entirely legal to zabawa, which means party in Polish, late here. So please don't rush away, you're going to be well fed and watered. Tadeusz was my much better self and described to his great amusement once on a work visa as an alien with extraordinary capabilities. It's likely he's somewhere here, since he loved the best literature, the best company, and a really good glass of wine or a Polish martini. I'm welcoming you all to the first Tadeusz Bradecki Prize event in his honour. He was really passionate about both reading and writing, and he was curious about truly everything. I'm so proud on his behalf that we had such wonderful international books submitted this our first year, 97 from 70 publishers from across Europe and the UK. I now have to do a lot of thanking. So first of all, it's a big thank you to all of you here tonight. You've come from Poland, Ireland, Shropshire, Cornwall, Kent, Gloucestershire, and from the length and breadth of London. So it's really appreciated that you're all here with us. I'd like to thank all the authors for their amazing books and of course their translators. Also the publishers who took the time and trouble to submit the works. And of course, our shortlistees, who Francis will talk to you about soon. Next, I want to thank our incredible judges. Francis Spufford, our incomparable chairman, who is both a genius writer and professor of creative writing at Goldsmiths. He also always has the best hat at any party. Carol Welsh, doyenne of publishing at Sceptre for decades, with one of the best lists of both fiction and non-fiction. And last but not least, Krzysztof Sanusi, who can't be with us tonight, unfortunately, he's in Poland, but multi-award-winning filmmaker extraordinaire and great friend and collaborator with Tadeusz for over 40 years. Then more important thanking, the Tadeusz Bradecki Prize team, huge thank you to you. We couldn't do this without you. So that is Marvellous Mike, Radiant Rosa, and Conscientious Catherine, who do all the hard work and do it effortlessly. So thank you to all of you. Also, thanks go to Gina for helping us with press, Adam for doing the live streaming tonight, and Roger for taking pictures. You're all stars, thank you. Then thanks to Ognisko, the wonderful Polish club here, who host us annually in this most elegant way. So now that's enough thanking and enough of me. We're going to play, with Adam's help, some short clips from the shortlistees about why they wrote the books, why they're interested in crossing genre, and what it means to them to be on the shortlist. And after a little bit of technical to and froing, when that's finished, Francis will kindly step up and talk to you more about the actual books themselves and the shortlistees. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Claudia Durastanti, and I wrote Strangers I Know as a meditation and exploration on intimate spaces and experiences, such as growing up in a family with 2 deaf parents. I come from a legacy of accidental migrants in between Southern Italy in the US for a very long time, and also being raised in a working class environment. Growing up as a feminist, I was interested to see if I could blend in all of these experiences through the filter of language and silence, of course. And also, I think I was deeply attracted by books that were, in a way, bilingual, as I felt I was growing up in between 2 spaces. So in a way, landing in a hybrid form in between fiction and nonfiction felt very immediate to me. I think that was the right format to write this kind of story. And also I was interested in stretching the eye I call it the centered eye, to make sure that something that feels very specific to one's own life, very situated, could stretch so far to reach a larger sense of collectiveness. And I'm very grateful to be in this short list, because these are the kind of books that I usually pick up and read for pleasure, but also for research. And I have a long-standing relationship, you can find this in Strangers I Know, with Polish literature, of course, speaking about transitioning between languages. Joseph Conrad, but also the title La Straniera owes a lot to Maria Koncevičová. And I'm also grateful because I got the chance to explore the work of Tadeusz Bradecki more. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sam Knight. I'm the author of The Premonitions Bureau, which I'm so happy has been shortlisted for the Tadeusz Bradecki Prize. I wrote the book because it was one of those ideas that just kind of wouldn't leave me alone. The Premonitions Bureau is really the story of John Barker, a British psychiatrist in the 1960s, who set out to capture the predictions and forebodings of the British public and to try and kind of harness them into an experiment in which you might be able to foresee future disasters and maybe even prevent them from happening. It's, on the one hand, an eccentric and doomed idea, and yet on the other hand, I think it speaks to sort of very deep human urges to know and to seek to control the future, not only in a kind of broad sense, but in an intimate and a personal sense as well. I read fiction. That's how I think of myself as a reader. And I think when I set out to write this book, it was kind of impossible not to try and write it in a way that sort of acknowledged the sort of the breadth of these themes and how they recur in really sort of all forms of writing going back forever. And I don't know, my favorite kind of books are the ones that you're not quite sure whether it's real or made up or somewhere in between. And so it's just really wonderful to have been, for that to have been recognized. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Tanya Malarczuk, and I'm honored that my novel Forgottenness has been shortlisted for the Tadeusz Bradecki Prize. I was asked to say a few words, and I apologize for doing so in my poor English. Well, I wrote this book to tell the story of a forgotten man, the Ukrainian Polish political thinker Mieczysław Lipinski. He believed in an independent Ukraine after the First World War, not based on ethnicity or language, but on shared land and civic values. Today we would call it a political nation, still the only democratic way to live together. The protagonist of my novel failed completely. Ukraine was occupied by the Soviets and went through horrible repressions. Lipinski was forced into exile, where he wrote his most important and bitter works on identity and statehood. At the end of his life, he bred chickens to survive. Balancing between tragedy and something almost funny sometimes broke my heart, because this is exactly where I come from. Writing Forgottenness let me move between fiction and non-fiction, between imagination and historical truth. I think literature gives us this chance to restore silenced voices and decide what and who and how is worth remembering. Being shortlisted means a lot, not only for the recognition, but because it reminds me that stories like Lipinski's still matter, especially today, as we once again witness war, exile, and the need to reconsider the history of Eastern Europe in a new light. Thank you, and special thanks to my Irish publisher, Bullen Press, and my English translator, Zenia Tompkins. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Claire Pollard, and I've been nominated for The Modern Fairies. This is a book set in the salons in Paris at the time of Louis XIV, and particularly the salon of Marie d'Aulnoy, a woman who coined the term fairy tale, which Charles Perrault also attended. And these were where a lot of the first fairy tales we know were recorded, new versions of them were made, they were modernised, and a lot of them were originated as well. This is over 100 years before the Brothers Grimm. I wrote the book in part because I just came across the story of these salons and I was like, oh my God, that's like Disney meets Dangerous Liaisons was the pitch I had to myself. But also I think because it brings together two things I love, which is fairy tales, sort of deep fiction. I love old tales and myths and stories, and also literary biography, which is one of my favourite genres. I like mixing non-fiction elements into fiction, partly I think because I absolutely love the process of research, and for me it has a sort of magic to it. Research, there's a sort of strange serendipity, and I couldn't believe it when I started researching these salons, some of the true stories about the women who attended them. It's such an honour to be nominated for this prize. I know Tadeusz in The End of Ends, his absolutely wonderful book, writes a lot about stories within stories, narrators, storytellers, endings, happy endings, and I hope a lot of those things are things I also address in this book, and I think we have perhaps a lot in common, and it really feels an honour to be nominated for this prize in his memory, and a sort of magic also, a sort of serendipity.
Hola, soy Alejandro Zambra, the author of Childish Literature, a book I started writing 7 years ago when my son was born, although it would be a while before I realized it could be a book. I was just taking notes or whispering sentences into the phone, while he and I were both lullabied by the rocking chair. It was rocking chair writing, so to speak. I was particularly amazed by all those new memories his birth awakened in me. It was like when you visit a house where you lived as a child, and you have the confusing feeling of recovering something you didn't realize you'd lost. So, although this book is the closest I've ever written to what is called non-fiction, its sense of fiction was something I wanted to preserve and cherish, and that finally became crucial to the way this book breathes. I am so glad that you guys nominated it for your amazing new prize. Muchas gracias.
Francis Bufford. This is indeed my prize-giving hat. And it has been my honour and pleasure and experience full of good surprises to be the chair of judges of the first Tadeusz Bradecki Prize. The prize is dedicated to the kind of writing that appealed to the omnivorous and polymathic Polish theatre director Tadeusz Bradecki, whose own gloriously unclassifiable book, The End of Ends, testified to his willingness to follow the thread of narrative almost everywhere. It's a prize for books whose ambitions overflow categories. Books which want to mix, match, and culture jump and cross-reference and cross-fertilize different kinds of writing to do new things that no one suspected the possibility of until someone managed to do it. We asked publishers to cast their nets wide and to submit everything they thought might possibly appeal to us in this, the prize's first year. They did. And we were given an array of gloriously varying and wonderful and strangely wonderful and sometimes just plain strange books to consider. From these, we selected with difficulty 6 shortlisted titles which seemed to us to display in radically different ways the unclassifiable ambition we were after. 3 were translations from Ukrainian, Italian, and Spanish. 5 were published as novels and 1 as non-fiction, but all of them contain sections that could easily be read as the reverse of whichever label for the category that was printed on their back covers. We like this. I shall now run through our shortlisted titles in beautifully arbitrary order by alphabetical order of author. Strangers I Know by Claudia Durastanti, translated by Elizabeth Harris, is a kaleidoscopic memoir novel, or novel memoir, in which one life, turning from place to place and language to language, reveals facet after facet of identity. And identity itself begins to seem as unreliable, or maybe as plural, as the completely incompatible tales the protagonist's deaf parents tell of themselves. It's a book about containing multitudes, which makes that more than an assertion, which beautifully finds a form to display the multiplicity in the self. The Premonitions Bureau by Sam Knight is the true, or at any rate mostly true, story of the bizarre attempt in the early 1960s to test clairvoyance systematically, and of the unorthodox psychiatrist John Barker who did it. Told with a gusto that upturns the apparently mundane to reveal its vivid, hallucinatory underside. Not so much history, this book, as a dreamscape, wonderfully researched and narrated. The Maniac by Benjamin Labatut is situated somewhere on the borderline between science writing and the contemporary novel. The Maniac is also a feverish exploration of the place where the extremes of reason shade over into madness, and clarity of mind brings more and more disturbing results. The Hungarian genius John von Neumann's pioneering computer at Los Alamos was named Maniac, M-A-N-I-A-C. And around the central mass of its vacuum tubes, the book spreads its wings back in time to the prehistory of the nuclear age and forward to the dawn of artificial intelligence in the present. It is a dark feat of historical, literary, and scientific imagination. Forgottenness by Tanya Malarchuk, translated by Xenia Tompkins, is a novel brilliantly pitched between tragic lament and dark comedy, in which a life of private obsessions and anxieties in modern Ukraine entwines with and illuminates the lost history of hopes for the country before and during and just after the First World War, before the 20th century revealed the darkness of the destiny Ukraine was going to undergo. On the one side, in the modern strand, there's a thing that the narrator has for a parade of really quite unpromising golden-haired men And on the other side stands the coughing figure of the real historical Vyacheslav Lipinski, the Polish aristocrat who devoted himself to Ukrainian nationhood, fought every battle, lost every battle, and looming over both past and present, oblivion, sucking minutes and years into its whale-sized jaws. The Modern Fairies by Claire Pollard is modern, not as in now, but as in the cynical, dangerous, disenchanted world of the French court at the end of the 17th century, where all is glittering surface. And to start a little circle to share fairy tales is not at all a safe thing to do, not when the unpredictable counterparts of the kings and witches, princes and princesses in the stories are so close at hand and so powerful. Claire Pollard's book is both fiction and metafiction, a story and a story about stories, weaving exquisitely between real and imagined, refined and gross ink and blood. Finally, Childish Literature by Alejandro Zambra, translated by Megan McDowell, is a poet's marvellously intimate exploration of the world of early childhood and the experience of fatherhood, using a mixture of tender observation, memory, and invention. Alejandro Zambra's son is growing up in Mexico City, but the little world of his first years will be instantly recognizable to any parent anywhere who has ever served as, quote, stairwell Sherpa, wardrobe assistant, sock matcher, toy litter collector, lunchtime cheerleader, personal poolside lifeguard, and voice actor for all kinds of inanimate objects. As you can see, those are extremely diverse successes. Needless to say, getting to the shortlist was tricky. Choosing between these wildly diverse successes was almost impossible, but it had to be done. The runners-up for the first Tadeusz Bradecki Prize are Benjamin Labatut's The Maniac and Forgottenness by Tanya Malyarchuk.
This is Bridget.
Thank you very much.
And the winner of the first Tadeusz Bradecki Prize this year is Modern Fairies by Claire Pollard.
Thank you so much. Absolutely honoured to be the first winner of this wonderful prize for Tadeusz Bradecki, and to be in this room with my agents here, Jenny, thank you very much. My editors here, Helen, thank you very much. Thank you to the team and the judges, and to be amongst so many fellow travellers in the land of fiction. I'm just going to read a tiny bit from the second chapter, where Marie Dolnois, my heroine, who's going to set up the salon and who coins the term fairy tale, has been married off at the age of 13 to a baron, a libertine, who's a brutal man. And she's already, at the age of 14, lost a daughter, lost a baby. And she's finding comfort in literature, but not just comfort. She begins to see the world is numbed by stories. Everyone's stumbling around drunk on stories, disregarding the truth. Stories about how marriage is a contract with God, about how bleeding between your legs means you're a woman, about how a husband cannot rape a wife, about how marriage is a happy ending. The story that a baron is better than a servant, that a baby who dies has been called to their maker in heaven. that good girls are rewarded. Stories through which people see the true shape of the world only dimly, as though through stained glass windows. Well, she can tell stories too. Marie, you see, may not be loved, but she is clever and brave, and she will write her own story, with herself as heroine, simply editing out all the bits she can't endure. During her long, empty days, whilst the Baron drinks with his friends, she escapes into books, reading widely from the library, educating herself. She begins to write letters to her parents every day, using them to try on a knowing literary voice. But when they almost never reply, she fills the hours by writing her own stories instead. Mother Goose Tales. The pen is a magic wand she can tap, and a door somewhere else appears.
I'm instructed by the only begetter of the prize that you should all have another martini. Thank you very much.